Welcome back to the Inside the Trailer Sports Podcast. My name is Drew, and this is Connor. Today is episode number 18, and this week was NFL free agency. We got legal tampering, and we got, obviously, the start of the new season. So there's a lot of NFL content to go over. New players going to new teams, teams loading up on their offensive line, defensive line, teams just becoming new Super Bowl contenders. We'll talk about all that and more on today's episode, episode number 18. Let's dive straight into it.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, for real. So, obviously, NFL free agency, we have so many things to talk about. Let's start with our team, the New England Patriots. What can you tell me about them?
You know what I can tell you about it? And I want you to watch this very carefully. I want you to put the word that we're back up. Understand me? We're back up! We are back up. Big time. New England. We're back.
Yes, sir.
We are so back. It's not even funny.
Except that helmet is...
Dude, we're so back. The helmet is a little funny. It doesn't fit because it doesn't have any padding on the inside.
Yeah.
But again, tell everyone that we're back up. New England, winners of the offseason so far. And they still have the fourth pick. Dude, New England, crushing it. This is awesome. Where was this the last couple of seasons?
I don't know.
I'm going to take this helmet off because this is going to look ridiculous.
They did it in 2021.
Oh, this is tight. I'm sorry. It's loose when you get it in, but it's super tight when you're trying to...
Sounds a little weird. But back in 2021, they actually did something similar to this where they loaded up.
They did.
But obviously, I mean, it worked out a little bit.
It kind of worked, kind of didn't. You've got guys that are still kind of around or that played well, but...
This team is special,
this team is special, man, because we got Mike Vrabel now, and he came in, and we knew that he is a defensive-minded, coach, and they went out and they got some good guys on the defense. Oh man, let's start with Milton Williams because that's one of the bigger signings here.
Huge signing.
Milton Williams was originally
supposed to be a Panther.
It was supposed to be a Panther originally, but then last minute change of plans, he ends up going to the Patriots, and now he's the highest paid Patriots player in history.
Yeah, crazy.
$26 million a year. This is awesome. I'm super excited. They went out and they got a bunch of guys as well. Oh my God. I just got to pull up the list of names. Harold Landry, Carlton Davis. I'll just keep going the whole team, not even just defense. Morgan Moses were upgrading the line. Milton Williams again. Josh Dobbs coming in as a backup quarterback. I like that. Matt Collins
is a big one.
Matt Collins is a good receiver. I'm not saying he's necessarily wide receiver one, but good. I like that for the depth.
Extremely good
that for the depth because we've got a couple guys who have been kind of shaky, but we know what Matt Collins is, and Matt Collins is going to be there, and he's going to be a good, reliable.
He's been sneakily solid for the past few seasons, and people aren't talking about it. Bills fans know. Bills fans know how good he was last season, and I guess Falcons fans know how reliable he was when he was in Atlanta.
Dude,
so he's one of those sneaky good guys that you really don't know is having a pretty good past few seasons, and people aren't saying enough about it. But I mean, I don't want to rush each free agency because we got a lot to talk about when it comes to the free agency recap. But all those names that you talked about, I'll bring up two key points. The defense looks stacked. Obviously, the cornerbacks are the biggest thing about the Patriots right now with Christian Gonzalez and now with Carlton Davis. Obviously, they had good safeties already, and now their defensive line looks nasty,
dude,
man.
And it's just gonna get better, man. Another name I didn't even mention was Robert Spillane as well coming in. That was one other name I didn't mention. But dude, we still got the fourth overall pick.
Yep.
Now the question is, are we gonna use the pick or are we gonna trade back? It doesn't matter either way. You're looking great. You can use the fourth pick and go get someone like Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, which would be my pick. I would love to go get Abdul Carter, but I wouldn't be mad with anyone.
I want Travis.
Travis would be awesome. I would not be mad with Travis. Tet. Will Campbell, if you want to bump up the line even more. But again, we can keep going all day. I'm not going to keep going into this because we got plenty to cover when it comes to terms of free agency. Let's just jump over. Patriots on the rise, but a team that is on the fall heavily. San Francisco 49ers. They've lost half of their team, man.
It's actually sad.
They went from Super Bowl contenders in the beginning of next season. I had them winning the Super Bowl in the beginning of last season, and now the team fell apart. They got hurt all season last season, and now they're... Oh man, we don't even know if they're going to be a playoff team next year, and they're falling apart. It's getting bad. They've lost a bunch of weapons, and it might continue to get only worse. They just lost Debo. Debo's going to the 49ers. That's a big offensive piece that they lost. And to be honest with you, Brandon Ayuk might not be long after that. He might be out the door, which that receiver core is just getting blanked out. It's going to be George Kittle season.
Ricky Pearsall might be someone that could have a good season.
Ricky Pearsall could. He absolutely could. But even worse, besides the offense, Kyle Juszczyk is another name that left the offense.
Yeah.
Great fullback, 9-time Pro Bowler, but I think All Pro. But it's the defense. They've lost so many pieces on the defense. That defense that was again one of the top NFL defenses in the league.
Yep. It's gone. And it's like they released Leonard Floyd thinking they were going to get Joey Bosa and have the Bosa brother offense.
And
obviously they missed out. They missed out, and Bosa's now a Bill. So it's really interesting to see how they're going to recover from this. I can see them having a pretty bad season.
I absolutely could too. And again, I've talked about this many times.
We could talk about this forever.
We could talk about this forever. Brock Purdy's not a good quarterback. Don't expect much from the 49ers next season.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
I agree with you.
But again, we're not going to see much. And he's due for an extension too.
Yeah.
So now you have to cut all these guys. Are you going to give him an extension? That's a question, for another day.
Might be a rebuild in the process.
There might be a potential rebuild. Maybe a retool. They still got some good pieces. Nick Bosa is still there.
Christian McCaffrey's on the older end though.
Christian McCaffrey, true. Trent Williams is still there. They've still got some guys on the defense as well hanging around, but they've lost also plenty of them.
Yeah.
But again, 49ers kind of a team that's on the major decline. But you never know. We'll see how their season plays out.
Yeah, for real.
Maybe it works out. Another team, though, I wouldn't say necessarily has been declining, but another team that definitely has not been getting better is the Dallas Cowboys. I think Jerry Jones. I don't know if Jerry Jones woke up in time for free agency. I think he might have just. I think he's asleep. He's an old man. I understand when you get a little older, you get a little sleepy sometimes, and oh boy, I think he fell asleep. I actually saw a video on Twitter. Someone was joking. I think it must have been years ago. They were doing the oh my god, what was that song in 2016 where you stand the mannequin challenge? That's what it was.
Yeah.
And it was someone saying oh, this is Jerry Jones at start of free agency. And to be honest, that's what it was. They picked it up a little bit today. They got guys like Kenneth Murray Jr. They just traded for him.
Yeah.
But
overall,
they haven't done anything to really improve their team.
I'll say another couple names that I think is just kind of stands out a little bit. Kevonde Turpin, right? They signed to a 3-year, $18 million contract. He was a certified punt returner that you just gave $6 million a year.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love Turpin. I thought he was actually one of the more promising guys on the team.
Yeah.
He stood out a little bit. So maybe they're making him their wide receiver too, which is an interesting thing to keep in your mind, dynasty owners, just in case he does become the wide receiver too.
Yeah,
that'd be sneakily a good play. He's very quick.
He is.
And obviously they brought back punter Brian Anger, so it's what did they really do? Not much. And it's kind of I don't know how much this team is going to improve.
I don't think they're going to improve at all, but I also don't know if they're going to decline. But maybe they will because they haven't made any improvements. Jared's got to wake up and he's got to get something going.
He does.
But moving over, I think we're going to stay in the same division. I'm going to jump a little bit. We're going to go over to Washington.
Sure.
That's a team that is definitely on the rise.
I'm scared of them.
A team that was already looking scary before just got even more scary. They bring in Debo, like we already mentioned with the 49ers. They bring in Debo. That's going to be another huge piece for Jaden Daniels. It's going to open up the field even a lot more for him too.
Yeah.
We talked about that the last episode. They brought back Zach Ertz. Marcus Mariota was a good mentor. They brought him back as well to kind of continue to teach Jaden Daniels. But another huge one is Laramie Tunsil coming in at the left tackle.
Left tackle.
Oh my God. Jaden Daniels is gonna his jerseys every single game. They're gonna look clean.
Could be QB1 in Dynasty.
He absolutely could be,
depending on if Tunsil is even still good. Obviously, he is still good. I'm just saying,
depending on how his play.
If he can produce the same way he has been in past years,
dude, it's scary.
Daniels is rolling out to the left all day.
Dude, absolutely.
All day.
Absolutely, he is. And again, that's going to continue to open up the field as well. The Commanders' offensive line is getting better. But even with switching to the defense, they just got Javon Kinlaw as well to bump up that D line.
Yes, bro. That's a big one.
That's a big boy. And they brought in a big upgrade on the D line. They brought back Bobby Wagner as well, one of the best linebackers of all time.
Veteran pregnant.
Just recently, before we started recording, they brought in cornerback Jonathan Jones as well. Who was great in New England during his time. And I think that's going to be a good veteran presence in that locker room and on the defense. They've re-signed Zane Gonzalez and Tress Way, great special teams players as well. This next season's looking really good for the Commanders. That's going to be a fun team to watch, as if they weren't already. It's
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. Exactly. But they get better.
For sure.
Switching over a little bit, instead of just talking about teams, let's talk about players. Myles Garrett.
Yep.
One of the, if not the best defensive player in the league.
I'd say, yeah.
Originally had
I'd say.
Requested a trade out of Cleveland, said he didn't want to be there anymore, and just got the bag.
Yes, he did.
He just got the bag. It's kind of funny. That's what money does. You can be in an awful situation like Myles is, and someone throws, "Oh, here's $40 million a year." All right,
sure.
I'm staying in Cleveland. Sure, why not? So Myles ends up staying. I guess they worked out with the front office. The front office ended up paying him, giving him that extension, and Myles is happy. He's a happy camper, and
I'd be happy too.
He ain't going nowhere now. But it's going to be interesting to see how the Browns kind of rebuild around Myles Garrett. Now that it seems likely that Deshaun Watson's going to kind of be, I don't even know if they can necessarily release him. He's kind of he's phased out. I guess that would be the proper word, because I can't even say if they're going to release him, because that's so much dead money that you have to eat.
Yeah,
because it's fully guaranteed.
Yeah. You might as well. I mean, at the same time, if he's not going to do anything, like, you could release him. Genuinely, it doesn't really matter. He's not going to be a figure in the locker room who's doing anything. I'm sure no one cares about him. No one cares about him.
He's definitely not liked in that locker room, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be happy with him leaving, and it's going to be hard to see, where Deshaun would even go after this.
Yeah.
Because he's definitely not getting an NFL starting quarterback job. I mean, maybe, but he's going to have to go prove himself. But the hard thing is, because he's still relatively talented, it's just the locker room presence. It's just, after everything that's happened.
Is he talented though?
I thought he. I mean, maybe before
obviously
everything that was going on, he was one of the best NFL quarterbacks. And then everything happened. He missed a bunch of games.
Yeah.
Missed a couple of seasons, and now here we are in the fall of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Browns do, partially in this draft. And right now, let's switch over to our next topic, and that's Aaron Rodgers' meetings, because it fits hand in hand with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rodgers is visiting the Browns and the Giants for visits to see if he's going to be their quarterback. So there's something there. There's also obviously the fact that Russell Wilson is also visiting the Browns and the Giants. So the Browns are making it clear that they're trying to get a good quarterback, which is interesting for their draft. Which means, are they going to go after someone else? Are they going to trade out? Are they going to get Hunter? Are they going to get Carter? Like, what are they doing? Carter and Myles Garrett would be an interesting.
That'd really easily be the scariest duo on the defense.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, you don't even have to debate that. That's absolutely insane.
But if they end up going that way, it's like, what does the offense look like? Because I mean, I have no idea. You bring Rodgers in,
bad.
Who are you throwing to?
Right.
Judy,
yeah. They don't.
Guess
Elijah Moore's a free agent, so
it's not him.
It's not him unless you re-sign him. But I mean, at this point, probably not.
It's just interesting to see what the Browns do. I think this is a long year rebuild. Rodgers doesn't really fit that criteria. I think maybe they're just waiting till next year to get a good. I think that's what's happening. And I think they want a free agent quarterback, and then next year in the next draft, they're going to go towards a better quarterback class.
Right.
And I think that's what's going on here.
Right. I agree with you. They just traded for Kenny Pickett as well.
Yeah. So.
But I mean, obviously, he's not going to be.
No.
Yeah. He's not going to be the guy. We know that. He's not going to be the starter, most likely. He'll probably just be the backup, and maybe it'll be a QB competition. Who knows?
We'll see.
We'll see. Same thing. Aaron Rodgers and Russ both having those meetings. But in terms of the Jets, that was another team that had questions about quarterback, and they got their guy in Justin Fields. He gets a 2-year, $40 million contract.
Good for him. And
now he gets to team up again with his former Buckeye college teammate, Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson originally had requested a trade, when Rodgers was still there, with everything that was going on. But now I can imagine that Garrett Wilson must be the happiest man in the league.
Yeah, because it was rumored that Garrett Wilson might be the one leaving and Devontae might stay. Obviously, depending on if the Jets kept Rodgers.
Right.
Now, obviously, both of them are gone. And what would be the purpose of trading Wilson now?
No,
I don't see any purpose.
I think Wilson definitely wants to stay now. He gets to go play with his former college quarterback in Justin Fields. And it's going to be interesting to see if Justin Fields can flourish. I mean, we saw little sparks of it when he was on the Steelers last year on a new team.
When he did start.
And when he did start, he was balling out. He was playing pretty well, but then they ended up going with Russ.
Yeah.
Now, you bring him to the Jets. The Jets have kind of been trying to make that push. They've been getting really young. I think, the answer now was that Rodgers was potentially holding them back.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of, after everything, I think he was potentially the reason why. Now it's going to be interesting to see a guy like Justin Fields come in and how he can help command that locker room to getting to that playoff push that the Jets have been trying to get to for the longest time now, because they have a huge playoff drought. I'm forgetting exactly how long it is, but it's one of the longest in sports history.
Yeah,
but it's going to be interesting to see if he can take them to the playoffs. Spoiler alert, it's the New York Jets. They're not going to the playoffs. But you never know.
It's nice to talk about and theorize.
It's nice to theorize it
theory.
and hope. Well, I don't hope so.
Yeah.
I don't like the Jets. But, it's still interesting to look out for.
Yeah, exactly.
Something else that I want to talk about is DK. DK gets out of Seattle after requesting the trade, and he's going to Pittsburgh.
Fields and Russ, it's like you're missing out on now a generational wide receiver duo in Pickens and DK.
Yep.
That's honestly the most insane crash out wide receiver room I've ever seen in my life.
I'd be scary to be an NFL cornerback or a D-back. Like you're gonna get punched by the both of them down the field. So that's gonna be funny pairing to see DK and Pickens together. That's gonna be fun to watch. DK originally said he wanted to get paid, but he also didn't want to go to cold weather. So where does he go? He also wanted a good quarterback too. So where does he go? Pittsburgh,
which is
questionable quarterback. But they don't even have a quarterback right now, and also it's freezing. It's Pittsburgh.
It's like the Patriots couldn't have done that.
I know.
First of all,
again, biased. We should have came to New England. If money talks, Patriots are willing to talk money. I think they. Well, I mean, maybe not. But
if I was him, I would have went to Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, you actually do have Bryce Young. I mean, it's not amazing. Let's be honest, not amazing, but it fits your box of warm weather.
Right.
And they gave you 2 picks, right? They wanted to give obviously the Seahawks 2 picks, right? And they would have paid you more than what the Steelers.
They probably would have.
40. I think it was $30 million a year that they would have paid him. So I mean, it's just interesting. I would have went if I was DK. I would have done that move. Obviously, I'm not DK.
Yeah.
So,
but
yeah,
I don't know. Interesting to see how DK and Pickens go as a tandem and who Pittsburgh ends up getting as a quarterback.
Yeah.
Again, it could be Russ. Maybe he resigned, but it could be also Rodgers. Or they could go in the draft. Again, it's still the only beginning. It's only the beginning of the offseason, really, even though free agency just kicked off. So we still got a long way to go until the season to find out who that guy is going to be. Another team that's stacking up, though, is the Vikings. The Vikings just lost Sam Darnold to the Seahawks. And, the Vikings are going to roll with J.J. McCarthy. That was the question. It was Darnold, J.J. McCarthy. We have our answer. J.J. McCarthy is going to be the day one starter, as long as he's still healthy, which I believe he is now.
He's the only one rostered as a quarterback right now.
He is, and they're probably bringing a vet, to kind of continue to mentor him. But J.J. McCarthy is the guy. As if we didn't already know that he's the guy. And that Vikings team is getting better, and J.J. McCarthy is going to be walking into a great situation as if he already wasn't.
I like it for him.
They're stacking up on the O-line. They're stacking up on the D-lines especially. He's going to have it hopefully easy. They re-signed Aaron Jones as well, and he's walking in with a great receiving core in Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, T.J. Hawkinson. I could keep going on. Great receivers, great situation for J.J. McCarthy. It's going to be exciting to see how he plays in his rookie year.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, what a great situation to get thrown into. Like you said, I think he'll do really good things, especially with his wide receiver core.
I hope you would. With that wide receiver core, I hope you could do some great things.
For any quarterback.
But JJ's talented as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're gonna hopefully be able to see that talent shine.
They went 14-2 last season. We gotta remember that. Do they do the same? My guess. It's very possible.
It is very possible. Even upgrading the team. I mean, it's hard to replicate that kind of success. But with the way the team's getting, they absolutely could. They definitely could.
Yeah.
The team's getting better. We said Darnold out, McCarthy in. Let's switch it over. Devontae Adams in, Cooper Kupp out. Devontae Adams ends up signing with the Rams as well. So now we're going to get another great duo, as if we didn't already have it with Puka and Cooper. Now it's going to be Puka and Adams. That's going to be a fun tandem to watch now.
Wow.
That's going to be exciting. I think Matt Stafford is definitely loving the idea of being able to play with Devontae Adams. But another big topic now that we haven't gotten quite the answer on where he's going to go yet, but we probably will soon, is Cooper Kupp. As the day of this filming on March 12th, Cooper Kupp got released. So now he's a free agent. He can go sign with wherever he wants. A lot of teams have been in the mix. A huge one has been New England, potentially. He reportedly has been excited or interested,
curious about the idea of playing with the Patriots.
That would be fun to watch him play with Drake May.
Yeah, there's some other teams too.
There's some teams.
There's the Packers, the Titans, the Cowboys. Teams that need wide receiver 2s. I mean, the Packers need wide receiver 1 too. So they're kind of in the same situation. Titans, I mean, they could use it. It always seems to be the Titans that screw the Patriots over. So I could see that happening again. I'm sure there's other teams that are interested in him too. But yeah, I mean, I like the New England fit, and also I like the Devontae Adams fit back to replace Cooper Kupp in LA. To be completely honest,
I like that as well.
It's just. It's kind of a crazy situation. It's not something I pictured happening.
I know. It's for real. But it's going to be interesting to see where Kupp goes. We'll make sure we monitor that and, see where he ends up. Hopefully it's with New England.
Hopefully.
We will see. But the last thing I'm going to want to talk about, because we could sit here and talk about NFL free agency all day because there was plenty of moves and guys that I didn't even talk about. But the last thing I want to talk about being up on the rise again, because a lot of teams, like we said, have been up on the rise and some have been on the downfall. But one other one that is big up on the rise is the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
Oh, man. They are starting to build around Caleb exactly how they should. They're bolstering up that offensive line to give him protection, which Caleb was getting absolutely destroyed last season. If you watch any film, I should have pulled up the stat. Caleb was probably one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the NFL. I'd love to know where he is, because sometimes it feels like watching those games, it was easily the most sacked quarterback. But anyways, he's getting a lot of help on the O-line. They're building it up. And hopefully, he'll, have some time to actually sit in the pocket and throw. Jonah Jackson, Joe Tooney, Drew Dahlman, a couple of the guys that they got up on that O-line to help block Caleb. So, and Caleb already has the weapons, as we saw. So now with some time in the pocket, being able to throw, it's going to be interesting to see how Caleb does. And Ben Johnson, too. That's someone I didn't even mention.
That's the thing.
They got Ben Johnson as well, who is an offensive-minded guru and is going to be able to draw up some amazing plays, for Caleb. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Caleb plays this season. I think he's going to be someone that's massively on the rise.
Massively underrated at the same time, too.
Yeah.
I think people look at surface numbers and look at, he had not terrible rookie season. He had an average rookie season.
He had high expectations, though.
He had high expectations.
Being a generational
so everybody looks at that and they say, I don't know, I can't see him doing anything better. Because when people look at it from a fantasy perspective, they see the wide receiver core and they say, how did he not do anything? Well, deep down, he was the most sacked quarterback in the league, like you said. It's like his offensive line was the problem. Then you go out and you get center Drew Dahlman, who is probably one of the best centers in the league. Then you go ahead and you get help on the left tackle. You go ahead and you bolster the left guard too. So this offensive line is so much better than what it was last year.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like Caleb's in a better situation than he was before.
Absolutely. And I just wanted to fact check myself just to make sure I wasn't spewing propaganda.
Sure.
Caleb Williams, I've confirmed, is the most most sacked quarterback in 2024 and 2025 season. He got sacked 68 times throughout the season, which is 16 more than the number 2. Absolutely wild. But again, they, the front office used their brain for once, and they decided, okay, we actually need to go protect Caleb because he can't be getting sacked 68 times because he's bound to get hurt one of those times.
Yep.
And they got their help. Looking great for Caleb. Again, he's got the receivers. Bears could be making a good push in the NFC North. But again, in the NFC as well.
Yeah.
Maybe they can make that playoff push because they had the potential at the beginning of last season and they just fell apart. But it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. But same thing with the whole NFL itself. I mean, again, we could sit here and talk all day about NFL free agency and coming up on the season, but those were just some of the bigger topics that I wanted to go over with.
For real, yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, let's
switch.
Big day. It was a huge day.
Big
it's going to continue to get better. There's plenty of free agents that are still on the market as well, and that's something that the next episode maybe we can come back and kind of go over those guys that has signed after this episode as well.
Right.
But let's switch it over because again we could sit here and talk about NFL all day. Let's talk about the NBA. Let's switch over to the NBA.
Cool.
NBA, in my opinion, just from sitting here and watching, a lot. I go on Twitter a lot.
Sure.
And just reading Twitter and just seeing what everyone has to say. I think the NBA has a massive negativity problem, and I think that's really affecting its viewership. As we've talked about before, with NBA viewership going down, it's hard to say exactly where, the negativity comes from. There's a couple of factors that play into it as to why viewership is going down. But I think it starts with the fans.
Sure.
And it's funny enough because you think the fans would be the one that support the product, but I feel like a lot of times the NBA fans are the ones that hate the product, and which is why NBA viewership goes down. I think with the NBA, there's a lot of, I don't want to say propaganda. That's not the word. A lot of, kind of motives. Like people have their own thoughts of, I'm trying to think of how to describe this. Like
they watch for specific reasons, is what you're trying to say when
right.
you say motives. So, I mean, what might those motives be? For example,
just agendas is the word that I'm looking for. They have their agendas, and they're trying to prove a point that I think a common one that I see, and maybe this is me just being a Boston fan, is that again, there's plenty. Jason Tatum is one of the most heavily criticized players in the league, even though he's one of the best. Obviously, it goes kind of hand in hand. You're one of the best, you're going to get criticized.
Yeah.
But a lot of the criticism is extremely unfair, and it's just spewing propaganda out there. Oh, Jason Tatum is so corny. Oh, Jason Tatum is so overrated. Jason Tatum this, Jason Tatum that. And here's another thing I want to go into. And I think it's Lakers fans more specifically that were doing this because they were salty. The Celtics and the Lakers just played last week. Great game. The Celtics ended up taking that. Jason Tatum ended up playing most of the game. I think he played 42 minutes. And you know what Lakers do? Fakers. Lakers fans do. They go on Twitter and they complain that Jason Tatum played the whole game and treated it like it was the playoffs. Oh, this was a regular season game that didn't mean anything, and Jason Tatum tried too hard, and he went out and played the whole game like it was Game 7 of the NBA Finals.
People actually saying that? It's actually stupid.
It's stupid, and it's the agendas that they push because there's and again, it's not just Jason Tatum, it's other people as well, but it's anti-players' agendas like this that are ruining the product, and it's extremely frustrating to be a fan, and you can see why viewership is going down. I think another part of it too, besides the fans, because I could sit here and talk about NBA Twitter all day and about the type of stuff that I see. It's terrible. But another example I want to put out there is the analysts and the reporters that we see out on the TV, on the actual TV when we watch the product. It's part of the reason why I don't want to sit there and watch it, because you have idiots that sit there and just talk nonsense out of their mouth. And a couple names, and it's hard. Some of these guys I like. Some of them make good points. Some of them are funny and entertaining. But I think that's what they try to go to more often than actual factual statements, is just pure entertainment. Stephen A. Smith is another guy. Shaquille O'Neal, one of the greatest basketball players of all time, is unbearable sometimes to listen to. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And I want to pull up some tweets that I have saved here about Shaq specifically, because oh man, it's frustrating sometimes listening to him. This one that I have pulled up here, I'm talking about the Detroit Pistons. It's like Shaq doesn't actually pay attention to the NBA. He just kind of just says whatever's on his mind. They just throw him behind the desk and say, oh, you're Shaq. Go talk. You got the personality, which he absolutely does.
I think that's what part of it is, though, is they want someone like that.
Absolutely. They want former guys who know the game, which they do. They absolutely, because they play but they don't. After they've played, they don't. Clearly, what I'm about to explain shows that they don't actually sit down and watch the product.
Okay, all right, let's hear it.
Shaq goes in to talk about the Detroit Pistons and how they're boring. He's ripping them apart. He doesn't know the coach. Like, he just doesn't know what he's talking about. But the Pistons have been having the best season that they've had in years. In so long. This is a great season. Cade Cunningham is having a really good season, and Shaq is sitting there tearing them apart like he doesn't know what he's talking about. That's just something that's extremely frustrating as well. Another tweet that I'm going to pull up right here really quickly. I'm sorry, I'm just kind of opening this up. Sorry, just give me 1 second. Shaq goes on to talk about Zion Williamson the other night. Zion Williamson puts up a triple-double, 22, 10, and 12.
I was watching.
Awesome performance. You know what Shaq says?
What'd he say? Because I'm curious about this one.
He goes, you're giving him props for that? I need more. Anybody can get 20 points now. That's not good enough. I'm not impressed by that. Are we serious?
It's clear that he didn't watch the game. And as someone who, this was one of my first games that I've seen in a Pelicans game, I'll say, in a while. Because I like to watch just random games here and there.
Yeah.
And the fact that I also had money on the line really does help.
That would help.
But me watching the Pelicans the other night, Zion absolutely carried them to a win. And so it's interesting to say that he's not impressed by it. Zion was the guy that the Pelicans relied on in the clutch, and he absolutely, he just took over.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's surface level numbers that analysts look at, especially personality type analysts, like obviously him. It's a little unfair to the game. So I'll agree with you there. I am going to ask you a question though. How, and be honest with yourself as you say this. How many games are you watching this season? Are you watching often? Because I know we got busy schedules and stuff. Are you watching these games often? Sometimes, or are you barely watching at all?
I mean, I try to watch when I can.
It's a when you can.
It's a when I can. I mean, recently I've been kind of getting a little busy, so I haven't been able to sit down and watch a lot of the games. But I try to at least go back and pay attention to the games, see what's happening around the league. But the games that I have watched, it's the same thing where you've got idiots that go up there and just kind of talk out.
So you don't like what's being talked about as well as the fans' reaction to everything.
Right. Exactly. And again, I'm not trying to sit here and say I don't watch the games. I try to keep up with it so I know what's going on in the league. I'll try to watch highlights again so I know what's happening, pay attention to who's doing what, how teams are doing. I can't honestly say I sit there and watch every single game every night.
Yeah, obviously. We don't want to expect that.
Unfortunately, I've got other stuff going on. I have other stuff going on where I can't sit and watch every single one, but I try to pay attention. But it's guys like, again, I can sit here and tear Shaq apart, even though sometimes he's got great insight. And that's the thing about Shaq. It's tricky. Charles Barkley is another example of that. Charles Barkley just kind of goes out there and just, him and Shaq just get into it jokingly, but that's another guy that just makes bad points. Stephen A. Smith has his good takes, and when he has his bad takes, he has his bad takes, even though he's not, sitting there with Shaq and Charles Barkley. But another guy that annoys me, that honestly I just don't even like, and I think that might also just be being a biased Celtics fan, is Kendrick Perkins. That dude is an idiot goofball who turned his back on Celtics, and then Celtics fans hated on him. And then he wanted to come back and act like last year when they won the championship. Oh, Boston, I love you. Let's and they were like, no, go away, stay on that side. We don't want to deal with you.
Not about that, yeah.
Man, he's an idiot. Funny enough, SNL just did a skit recently. Kenan Thompson played Kendrick Perkins, and they on Weekend Update, and was just honestly, it's pretty accurate. If you watch the clip back, it's pretty accurate. Where Kendrick Perkins just says
whatever's just
words
in his mind at the time.
Yes, he just says words, and it's not like he can think about something that actually makes sense and is logical. It's just I'm trying to remember exactly what they did on SNL, but it was talking about LeBron is doing this at 52, and then Michael Che would just be like, oh, he's not 52. Well, because LeBron's 65, and it's just stuff like that. Again, it's kind of exaggerated. But it's stuff like that it's not even just Kendrick Perkins, just anyone else that says it, and it's just, what are you talking about? And funny enough, they had Kai Cenat on one of the talk shows the other day, and Speed was on.
Really?
Which
of
one
course they would, by the way.
Kai Cenat was sitting there. I'm pretty sure it was with Stephen A. Yeah, they were debating they did the LeBron and MJ debate. And friggin' Kai is sitting there, hands on the table like this.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Speed. Speed did it, but that was for soccer. That's another story though. But I think their media is fine, so we're not going to worry about that.
Sure.
But I saw a meme kind of funny because the both of them had their hands on the table, like they knew what they were talking about. Another photo too that got brought up was Drewski when he was talking about the news and politics, and he had his hands on the table. But specifically Kai Cenat, like why as a viewer would I want to know what the hell Kai Cenat has to say about the LeBron and MJ debate? I want to say, if I'm gonna tune in to watch, like Stephen A. or Skip Bayless,
sure,
any of those guys, I want to watch something that is gonna inform me about the NBA and kind of like give me a better understanding. You guys are supposed to be the analysts. Break the game down instead of just talking about, oh, Shea has more aura than, Jimmy Butler. I don't know, anyone. You know what I mean? I hate that.
Do you think this is and I know you're saying, there's articles about people complaining about the same stuff that you're talking about right now. Do you think that them being analysts like that, like that's what their personality is appealing to the current audience? Because if it's not, then clearly, like, that's the main issue. I would argue that it might be. And I'm not going to lie. I feel like NBA has this kind of community where it's like, well, first of all, it's easy to get into. Basketball is super easy to get into. Yeah. And I think there's a lot of the younger generation that it appeals to. So when you use buzzwords like aura and you talk loudly like that to each other and you do funny things like bring Kai on to debate about MJ and LeBron, yeah, you're appealing to the audience, the current audience. So I understood you in one aspect of like wanting to break it down, but like you got to think about the audience as a whole. Right, and I agree with most of what you're saying. Is like it's tougher to watch now than it was before, and I think there's a ton of elements to it than what you just said. I think there's more to it. I think the game evolving to something that's like just a bunch of threes is another problem.
Right.
So I think there's other things that go into it, and I'm curious if. I'll just ask you a question. Do you think this is something that can be reversed, or do you think it's going to continue to stay like this for a while?
I think for a while it's probably going to continue to stay like this, unfortunately. I don't see this ending anytime soon, but maybe it might take fan output and backlash to eventually maybe change the product. I think recently I've seen a lot of, hate versus guys like I mentioned, like Stephen A. But Stephen A. catches hate all the time, Skip Bayless, so like whatever. But guys like Shaq, KP, Charles Barkley, like, again, why would I want to tune into an NBA game and have to sit there at halftime and listen to friggin' Charles Barkley and Shaq and KP debate about who has more aura between Steph Curry and Shea? I don't care about that. I like the point that you made about trigger words in terms of trying to get a youth audience, but you can promote your game without having to do that. We grew up. I feel old saying that. Like when we were younger, we don't have to get tuned in towards like aura and stuff like that to make the game appealing. What is appealing about the game is the game itself and the players as well. Maybe a point you made was about the 3-point, the amount of 3-point shots that have been taken, kind of ruining the league potentially.
I like it. I like it.
Sometimes it does kind of feel like a lot, but I do like it. It helps. The game's going to continue to grow. So whatever. But that's going to be what's attractive to newer fans about the game. It shouldn't be about getting trigger words and getting celebrities like Kai Cenat in. Because I like the Kai Cenat clips. What the fuck does Kai Cenat know about the fucking NBA?
I mean, he might watch it, but he's no better than me and you.
Exactly.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
He's no better than me and you. At the end of the day, let's be realistic with ourselves. We're both not analysts that know this. We don't do this for a living. We do this for fun. What the fuck does Kai Cenat do? Kai Cenat sits there and streams, which is awesome, but why the hell would I want to tune in to a show where he's sitting there doing that on the table thinking he's dropping this amazing argument as to, the MJ and LeBron debate? Why would I care about that?
Well, you know why. And it's because it's not for you.
Right.
I
guess not.
It's for Kai fans. This is all marketing. That's what you're arguing is marketing. I mean, just because he doesn't know basketball, it's like they're not getting him because he's good at basketball. Like that's obviously not why. They're getting him because people know him and he's going to bring in new audiences. And that's where I would argue, you might just be bringing in more fans that know less about basketball than before. And it just becomes even more drained out than like it won't become this thing anytime soon where analysts are talking in depth like they did before.
Right.
It's only going to become more personality based than before.
And probably, you're right.
The future looks like that. And I mean, like, that's kind of how people see basketball players. I feel like if any sport had celebrities, it'd be basketball.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Type of thing.
Absolutely.
So, and that's just what the NBA is. And I think that is, you can either call it a problem, you can call it an upgrade. It really depends on the fan.
Yeah, I guess it depends on the fan and their perspective. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter about the fan and perspective when you look at the numbers.
The viewership and
look
stuff,
at the numbers. Look at the viewership. They're going down. You need to find out why. You need to change this.
Streaming is another one, too.
Yes, illegal streaming is a huge one as well. That's a problem that they got to figure out. But I think that problem is because of people have to pay for streaming services or cable or whatever. So being able to make this more accessible to the fans is something that's going to help improve viewership as well.
Yeah.
But again, that's a whole different topic that I'd love to get into another day. I could sit here and talk about the NBA all day, in about everything. But just to wrap it up, you make a good point about how the celebrities are coming in, and the younger fans that are coming in that might not know as much of the game. What I would love to see is the NBA, and like ESPN, for example. Back in the day, they used to have people that would actually break down the game, break down plays, coaching mindset, how things were done. Like, you got to learn about the game.
Yeah.
And, the ins and the outs of it. Now you turn in and you hear Shaq and Chuck and KP debating about who's got more aura. I don't need to hear that. I'd love to hear more insights of the game. So that's something that I think, hopefully the NBA can
I think it's something they could fix too. I don't of the issues, that's probably one of the easier ones.
Right. And with the younger fans too, when you have, and again, it ties into just online, the NBA Twitter as well, but when you're not talking about actual basketball on the TV and more of agendas, that's what pushes fans to follow these agendas and create their own agendas. So you're not watching, it's almost like you're watching a TV show, because it's like, you don't care about the game, you care about your agenda and if that fits.
At the end of the day,
and that's what's ruining the NBA currently right now. And again, I could sit here and talk about all day. I have plenty of tweets pulled up, but I won't get into this. I could tackle this all day if I wanted to.
Just leave it.
I'm gonna need a breather. And I want to wrap it up with our last segment. We're gonna go back to the NFL.
Okay.
We're gonna go back. I'm gonna calm down a little bit. I'll let you take this one for a second.
Cool. Something new that we're not used to doing on Inside the Trailer is Dynasty / fantasy football content. Right? And it's something that we're getting more into starting now. Now that free agency has really started and the new season has officially begun today on March 12th, it's time that we get a little bit into off-season content, which would include, dynasty players, like who's on the rise, who's on the decline, who should you trade for, who should you draft. All that stuff is stuff that we're going to do over the summer. And so be on the lookout for that.
Absolutely.
So today, what we're going to do is we're going to view 6 players whose stock will be on the rise, and we think that you should trade for right now. Because their stock is only going to go up from here, and if there's a better time to trade for someone, it's right now. So let's get into these players. I'll start off with my first person. And one of my favorite ones, and a lot of it has to do with just him joining the team today, Evan Ingram. He might be one of the cheapest tight ends that you can get that I think has the best, return. Yeah. I think he might give you I'll just say 2 years ago, 2023, he was tight end number 2 in the league. And I know this because I have him. I know this. And I knew that he was going to come back to this form eventually. I mean, I guess I didn't really know, but I believe that he can do that. In the short time that he played last season, he proved that he was still capable of being a reliable tight end receiver, I'll just say. He gets insane targets, and he's always Mr. Reliable on any team that he's on. Evan Ingram's been in the game for a while, and now he joins the Denver Broncos and Bo Nix, who just put up a QB7 season last season. So now he has, I don't want to argue that he's better than Trevor Lawrence, but he's in a better situation in Denver now. I can only see Evan Ingram doing, I could see him doing again like a tight end 2 type of season, and his stock right now super low. I almost dropped him type of situation because I got Brock Bowers, so I don't need him.
Right, you don't necessarily need him.
But at the same time, people are so focused on guys like Trey McBride, George Kittle, Brock Bowers. Evan Ingram might be on your waivers right now. He might be a player that's literally on the waiver wire right now that you can add, and you might not have to give anything up.
Yeah.
But if you do have to give something up, I'd say his stock is as low as his price. I would say is as low as a third. I think you can get rid of a mid to late third, and I think, depending on the tight end that they have, I'd be willing to give that up.
You still have Evan Ingram?
I do have Evan Ingram. So if anyone wants,
now you're convincing me. Yeah, you're convincing me to go get him. Maybe in my leagues I'll go get him.
In other leagues, though, if you're looking for Evan Ingram and he's on a team that person has another reliable tight end, I'd be bouncing on that right now because I think people are going to start talking about it, and his price is going to dramatically go up just because of the tight end market. And I know there's not many good tight ends. That's why I think he can get so high.
That's a great point. Honestly, maybe when this episode's over, I'm gonna have to go work something out in some of my other leagues. Obviously, I'm not gonna try with you because your asking price would be way too high.
True.
But I agree with you. I think he's in a good position. Sean Payton's there. Bo Nix had a really good season. And I think a lot of opportunities can open up for him. So I like the points that you made. Excited to see Evan Ingram next season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Another guy that I have that I believe is on the rise, and we kind of already talked about, but I just kind of want to dive even more into that, is Caleb Williams. We talked about that in terms of the free agency. They're upgrading the line for him. He's going to get a lot of protection. Most sacked quarterback 68 times last season, led the league by 16. Huge margin. That offensive line was terrible. Yep. They're bringing in guys who are solidified that are great. And they still got the weapons as well. And they're getting better with coaching. Ben Johnson's going to come in again, like I said, offensive mind guru, who is going to come in and he's going to drop some amazing plays for that team. He's going to drop some amazing plays for that team. And I think he's going to make them go far. I think they can go to the playoffs next season and make some make some noise. The Bears are looking a little scary next season. I'm excited to see Caleb's rise. We saw how he could play in college last season. It was an alright season. Not bad, not great. But for a generational quarterback that went number one, I think next season is going to be the one where he breaks out. He's going to be awesome. So Caleb stock on the rise tremendously.
Yeah, especially with getting Joe Tooney, Drew Dalman. These are guys who, that's where most people were targeting. Most of the defenses that were sacking Caleb Williams were going straight through the O-line. These are guys who are veteran presences, top of the league in their respective position. It's like Caleb is in a prime position to have an elite year. What you thought Caleb was supposed to be last year, he's looking to have this year.
Right.
And so, I would agree with you. What do you think his price is? Because I'm just curious about that.
That's hard because his price might be a little high because he's especially if we're talking in terms of Dynasty. It's hard. I think at least the first. Again, he's second year generational quarterback that got drafted number 1 overall. Maybe his stock went down a tiny bit since last season. Trade value maybe went down a little bit, but I would still price him pretty high because the future is still bright. But I think you're definitely getting a better deal than you would have at the beginning of last season. Yeah. So if you want Caleb Williams and you're willing to pay a little bit of a price, but still getting a cheaper deal than you would have last season, absolutely go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely go for it because he's going to play really well this season and it's going to be worth it.
I'll offer a bonus take too. I feel like instead of literally just giving up just a cheap asset, I think you could do a straight up QB swap. And this might be a hot take, but guy like Baker Mayfield, who if we're being honest, probably only has a few more years left. I would be willing to give up a Baker Mayfield who, got Chris Godwin back, still has Mike Evans, now has Bucky Irving, who is 22 years old, still Rashad White. The team has no signs of declining on the offense, and they were one of the most offensive teams in the league last year. Baker Mayfield, for example, might have a really good season. I would trade him still for Caleb Williams just because of the upside.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because I think, and obviously Caleb's young. You know what I mean? You're going to get more years out of Caleb than you are Baker Mayfield. If I'm a rebuilding team, I would want Caleb Williams on that team. And Definitely. I guess that's the best way to put it. If you're rebuilding, great fantasy asset to either trade for or try to, get somehow.
Absolutely. I agree with you. Definitely.
Yeah. And I'll leave it at that. I'll move on to my second guy. and that is Garrett Wilson. Now, this is a guy who his stock before was really high, last season lowered, and right now I think there's a big question mark as to what his value is. I would go out and I would go guns a-blazing to get Garrett Wilson now that Davante Adams is out of that receiving room. Now that they have Justin Fields and they have that Buckeye connection, Justin Fields and Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is primed to have his best season yet.
Absolutely.
I think you could even argue best quarterback that he's playing with. It's weird to say, seeing as Aaron Rodgers is this all-time great.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers didn't have a great year, though. I mean, there was days where he did, right? Those days that he did, guess what Garrett Wilson did? A lot. He did a lot. Garrett Wilson is now the wide receiver 1. It's official. Davante Adams is not stealing any targets. Garrett Wilson is primed to have a really good season. And if you can take advantage of a league mate who is, I don't know, has a lot of other good wide receivers and they don't value him as much, I would be going full attack on getting a guy like Garrett Wilson. I feel like he has the upside to be a top 10 wide receiver. Potentially top 5. It really depends on how good Justin Fields is.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be that good. I could, with confidence, say top 10.
Okay.
Right? I think Garrett Wilson is a guy I would pay a lot for. I'd pay a first-round pick straight up for him. I'd pay first and a second straight up for him, to be completely honest. So, I mean, I'll leave it at that. I think Garrett Wilson is going to have a great season.
I like that. I definitely agree. I think Garrett Wilson can definitely have a really good season. He can definitely have his best season. Something I thought of, I saw earlier, I wanted to pull up.
Sure.
Was a tweet about Garrett Wilson and the quarterbacks that he's been playing with since he got drafted. And it's kind of a list. We'll go back to 2022. Chris Strivler, Joe Flacco, Mike White, and Zach Wilson were all quarterbacks that threw to him in 2022. In 2023 were Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, and Zach Wilson. 2024 was Aaron Rodgers. And in 2025, we're going to see Justin Fields, excuse me. Justin Fields.
I mean, that's their
so
ship name,
1,
I
2,
guess.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This is going to be his 9th quarterback that he's played with since going. Or excuse me, 8 because they have Zach Wilson twice.
My whole argument is that this is, I mean, it's a top 2 quarterback throwing to you now. Top 2. I mean, you could argue that Aaron Rodgers was better. The team,
it's still one of the better ones that you've ever.
As a whole, yeah, exactly. Team as a whole is better. Will probably be better this season than they were last season. You have a top 2 quarterback that you've played with. Of the 8 quarterbacks that you just mentioned, you're now wide receiver 1. And Garrett Wilson still had a good year. Right. I'm gonna pull it up because I'm curious to see actually what his final
his stat was. While you're looking that up, I think honestly you can go as far as to say that Justin Fields is probably going to be the best quarterback that he's played with because he's got that chemistry with Garrett at college. Garrett and Justin together at college. Honestly, that might just make them the best because they've already got that chemistry. They know how each other work. So
yeah, Garrett Wilson was wide receiver 10 last year with Davante Adams in the receiving room, and I think this actually just makes me even more strong on the point that he could be top 5, and it would be sneaky.
Yeah, he definitely could.
Like most people would tell you, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Brian Thomas Jr., Malik Neighbors. No one is saying Garrett Wilson. No one I've talked to. And I think if you could trade an early pick, a young player, and try to get someone like Garrett Wilson who is only 24, now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Because as we get closer to the draft, honestly, you could even wait closer to the draft. Those picks will be more valuable closer to the draft than they are now.
Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean, it's something to keep an eye on and see if he's going to be even better next season. It's interesting that he was wide receiver 10.
It is interesting. I thought it was lower than that, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no, you make a great point. I mean, honestly, you make a great point that he could be wide receiver 5. Potentially, but again, it depends on Justin Fields.
Yeah.
He has a lot of his haters, but
yeah,
we'll see how that plays out. My second guy that I have that is on the rise, and I think this is I think, honestly, you can agree with me, this has to be the number 1.
Sure.
Has to be the biggest guy that's on the rise is JSN.
Yeah.
As if he wasn't already, and as if he didn't already have a great season last year, he's going to get the ball thrown to him 20 times a game now. They lost DK. They released Tyler Lockett. Jake Bobo is your wide receiver 2 now.
They got Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Wide receiver 1 season.
Yeah.
No, JSN is going to see a lot of targets next season. They just got Sam Darnold, coming off that really good season.
He throws the ball a lot.
He throws the ball a lot, and they came off that really good season with the Vikings as well, leading them to the playoffs. Well, it's going to be interesting to see how that tandem of JSN and Sam Darnold plays out. But I think it's going to play it well. Again, we saw a lot of success with Sam Darnold. Some people considered him in the MVP race towards the end of the season. But again, I think JSN is going to see a lot of production, and his stock value has to be on the rise, if not one of the highest wide receiver draft stocks in Dynasty and just in general, up there with Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb and, all these guys, Jamar Chase. I can keep going, but Jason massively on the rise as if he wasn't already.
Yeah, and I would agree with you. I think, honestly, for the same point that I would give for Garrett Wilson, he's now the main wide receiver in a thin wide receiver room with a quarterback who likes to throw the ball a lot. On a team who throws the ball a lot, the Seahawks tend to do that.
Yep.
I mean, JSN has never been primed for a better season, am I right? I mean, a few seasons ago, JSN was one of the best. Like, he was the best wide receiver prospect coming out of I think it was the 2023 draft.
Yes.
Yeah. Either way, this is the JSN that we were waiting for. Like, it might be too late to trade for him if you want to trade for him. I think people now know that he's about to have an amazing season. JSN's one of those guys that, like, if you do still have a league mate who is undervaluing him in any way, if they're asking for 2 firsts, late firsts, honestly, I'm doing that. 2 first-round picks for JSN.
That's not bad.
I'm doing that.
Yeah, that's not bad.
If they're undervaluing him any more than that, bounce on that. I think it's worth taking.
Absolutely, if you can get it for a less value than 2 first-round picks, definitely. With the amount of targets that he's going to see, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Jason is going to have a really. If you never had the breakout season this year, oh, buddy, wait till you see this season.
We got a glimpse of it too.
We got a glimpse of it, and I think it's going to continue to get better, and he's going to look really good next season.
Yeah,
potentially top 10, potentially top 5, like we said about Garrett Wilson. We will have to see.
We will have to see. I'll jump into my third and final guy that I'll cover for this segment. Tajay Spears, not a guy that really people are talking about. I'm sure it's not someone that's been on your radar.
Can't say he has, no.
I think a lot of people are seeing this rookie draft class of running backs and how much depth it is, and are looking at already the premier running backs in the league. This is a guy that's being very, very undervalued. A guy that no one is talking about. Tajay Spears is 23 years old, and I'm gonna run some stats by you just so you know. In week 15, 16, and 17, he was respectively the RB3 in week 15, RB10 in week 16, RB12 in week 17. He put up 27 points, 21 points, 12 points. This is PPR. He is in. It's also worth noting, in the 27-point week, he had only rushed the ball 4 times, but he had 7 targets, 6 catches. The weeks after that, 4 targets, 3 catches, 4 targets, 3 catches, and he ran the ball 10 times, 20 times. What we're seeing is his rushing value go up towards the end of the season. His targets stayed consistent. This is a dude who is still behind Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard's old now, if we're being honest. For running back, he's on the older end.
Yeah, we're not seeing the same success that we saw with the Cowboys.
Exactly. Tajay Spears is 23 years old. No one is talking about him. And there's a very good chance, and I said this about Bucky Irving last season before he did become the number 1 running back. I don't know if you remember one of our recent or our older podcast episodes. I said Bucky Irving, I can see him taking over as the RB1. Tajay Spears is the guy that I can see taking over as the RB1, being in the exact same situation as Bucky Irving is right now. And that's just one of my hot takes. I mean, someone might not agree, but Tajay Spears, I mean, you can get him for like a second. I feel confident that you can get him for an early second, and especially in our league. I feel like people aren't talking about him. But, I mean, if you have the pieces to go and get Tajay Spears, I would trade for him right now.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that wasn't a guy that necessarily was on my radar, but, I mean, you make great points as to why he should be. Now, he is. I like the points that you made that he was continuing to rise and kind of in the same situation as Bucky Irving was. So I'm going to have to kind of look into that, potentially some other leagues, and see if that's a guy worth trading for. But I like the points that you made, and honestly, he's going to be on my radar now that, you mentioned that, because he wasn't before, but now he is.
Yeah, exactly. Who's your final guy?
My final guy is Najee Harris, which a lot of people, might be hesitant towards because, Najee, might be getting older for what we consider a running back, but coming off of the success that he had with the Steelers and moving over to an offense of like the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh now that loves to run the ball, I think Najee, and especially being that top RB1, like it's solidified RB1 on that team, I think he can see a lot of volume, and I think he can get a lot of fantasy value as well. And again, the thing with Najee too, because he's older for a running back, his value might be a little lower than expected, or what you think it could be. So maybe this would be a good time to go and trade for Najee and take that chance on him, because he could have a really good season, with the Chargers as well, and that offensive run heavy team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like this situation for real. I think on the Steelers it was tough because the O-line wasn't amazing. The offense hasn't been amazing for years, to be completely honest.
It's been so mid, yeah. This Chargers offense is really good, though.
And
they've got a decent line as well. Rashawn Slater is one of the best tackles in the league. So having guys that can block for him and create gaps and holes for Najee to run, I think it's going to give him a lot of opportunities and a good chance as well.
And I think his value is pretty low.
Absolutely.
I think people are not thinking about the situation that Najee is going to. He's going from a shitty situation to a really good situation for the running back room. And Najee still put up a top 20 season last year.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll go much further just because like the running backs, there's so many good running backs, right?
Right.
I can see him jumping up 5 to maybe 7 spots, somewhere in the top 13, 14 range.
That's still really good.
And that's good. We saw success with J.K. Dobbins, who, came back from 2 ACL tears.
Right.
And had success on a team that, was the only team that would give him a chance. Najee's going to his best situation that he's been in yet.
Right. Absolutely, he is.
And I think his value is still relatively low. So,
now's the time to trade for him.
Now's the time. Now's the time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot.
Definitely.
But, that'll do it for our 6 players to trade for in Dynasty right now. If you have them, lucky for you. I'm jealous. But if you don't, these are guys that you should probably trade for because they're on the rise. Their value is going to skyrocket very, very soon. And it's people that you should target. So, with that, we'll end our episode. I know we had a lot of NFL content to go over, but that's just how free agency is.
Huge NFL week though, so how could you not
week. Exactly.
have heavily focus on that?
Exactly. Yeah. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, leave a comment what your favorite part of this video was and what your opinion is on everything we talked about. If you have anything to say, and subscribe because we post weekly podcast episodes as well as other content on the channel. And if you're not already following our social media pages, the links will be in the description. We're posting more videos daily, more filters, more games, all that type of stuff on our social media. So go ahead and follow those if you haven't. And with that, we will see you in our next video pretty soon. We'll see you all later.